Mom, Dad, come on in here. Actually, you want to go for a walk? Nah, just sit at the kitchen table. So, I'll play a little music for you here. Oh, wait a second. This is for the students. My bad. We'll go to that's the students drop-off playlist. The parents drop-off playlist. Here we go. That's better. So, why am I on here talking today? It's because this time of year, every year, we have a ton of our parents dropping off student athletes, and or they've already dropped them off. And so they're trying to figure out, how are they gonna hack this? How are they gonna survive their kid being at college? So I've got my Funnel Hackers t-shirt on, because that's what you want to do. You want to find what the best recipe is for success or successful parenting, so that your student athlete can actually try to find their happiness at school. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we talk about when we talk about your PH level, your parenting happiness level, and how effective you are with it. Now, it's a little bit more difficult when your kid gets to college, because they're not a kid anymore, and hopefully they've already learned as much as they need to be successful while they're there. So a lot of times parents will get that panic, and this isn't meant to be disrespectful towards the parents or anything else, because I think most of us mean well, but we make a ton of mistakes along the way, and unfortunately then emotion gets involved, and you start doing things that don't make any sense, and don't even probably make sense to you when you look back at it. So what this is about is trying to do your best and help your student be allowed what Thomas Jefferson talked about when he talked about the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It was set to be anyway, life, liberty, and property. So he switched that because the pursuit of happiness was about more than that. And for several different reasons, he made the change. Now, something that's interesting is a lot of people can't define happiness. And so, when we have vague definitions of things, and it ends up resulting in mixed communication and different goals for one side versus the other, it makes parenting and the college process that much more difficult when it doesn't need to be. So what we're going to try and break down first is, what do I mean when I'm talking about happiness? Sean, oh God, what was his name? He had a great TED talk. Anyways, it'll come back to me later. But he talks about the meaning that he likes, the definition that he likes for happiness is an ancient Greek definition. And it's where we talk about the joy that we feel striving for our potential. Again, the joy that we feel striving for our potential. That's what the ancient Greek definition of happiness is. And I think, for me, that's what I think about when I think about the pursuit of happiness, and when I think about our student athletes at our college, whether they're my kids or they're actually, other people's kids, but they're student athletes that we work with. That's what I hope for. I hope for the growth. I hope for the connections and all the learning that they can have take place while they're there, and enjoy themselves while they're there. One of the most important things before we even get started is talking about like what we're talking about. What is okay to talk about with your student athlete? So have that dialogue with them, hopefully before you drop them off, but at least after you drop them off, have that dialogue. What's okay to talk about? What do they want to talk about at college? I would recommend probably not asking them about like the usual things, the common things. Don't bring back up high school. Hey, how's this friend doing in high school? Or how is so-and-so doing from high school, whether it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, or just like one of their BFFs or something, because they may be missing them, and you don't need to bring that up. You're just kind of stirring the pot for what benefit, I don't know. So, also set some ground rules. And when I say set the ground rules, that doesn't mean you set the ground rules. That means let them set the ground rules. So that means, bad news for the parent, the student is actually in charge. And they have been probably for a while. Now it's time that you allow them to kind of grow and become themselves. So how do you hack this parenting for college kind of a thing? You want to, again, like I said, the reason why I've got the ClickFunnels on is because Russell Brunson talks about, how he hacks things business-wise, and he looks at other people or other marketing programs that are successful, and he tries to break them down and discover how they function, how they work, how they operate. And it's the same thing with parenting for student athletes in college or just students in college. It's you want to see what's worked before and then try to personalize that and make that work for you. So we've been doing this for over 2.5 decades. I can tell you what works. I can tell you what doesn't work most of the time. There's always exceptions. So, but for the most part, if you're honest, if you're open, and if you're communicating with that person, you're gonna do fine. You're gonna communicate clearly with them, and it's gonna be okay. So the next time you're gonna call them, think about this for a second. Do they know that you're gonna call them? Did they agree to it? Was it okay? And before you call them, think about this. Are you calling for them? Or are you calling for you? And if you're calling for you, then maybe you should pick up the phone, call your mom or call your dad or call somebody else who's looking for a phone call from you. So that's the same thing kind of like that you're hoping for with your student athlete, that they call you. They're there, they need to be present with what they're doing. They can't be, a full-time communicator with you while they're there. They need to focus on being present. Again, is it to your benefit or their benefit? Or is it mutually beneficial that you're talking? You need to be a joy to them and make sure that you're listening. That's pretty important. I think it's funny that a lot of people don't know the proper or kind of the etiquette almost with speaking with their student athletes while they're in school or while they're developing. And there is an etiquette to it. It's almost like John Gray talks about, if you've ever heard, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And the funny thing is, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and parents are all the planets in general, and their child or their kid is the sun, and they revolve around them most of the time. So I'm not saying you have to be that way or you have to look at things that way. That's just kind of the way it is often for most of us. And it doesn't mean that our whole world is our children. It just means that we're there for them regardless of wherever we are or wherever they are. We're always close enough to actually be of benefit to them. Now, it's important that we don't get too close. So it's important that you try to listen to them. Like John Gray will talk about, he said, all right, well, when a male comes home, he doesn't want to really talk about the day. When a female comes home, or that feminine quality in a male or female, they'll want to talk about it. But the feminine quality in males or females doesn't want you to solve their problem. They just want to communicate their problem. So when you talk with your student athlete at school, don't look to be their savior. Don't look to be the person solving their problems. Don't look to be the person who asks a question and looks to fix it. Now, that's typically what a lot of parents do. That's what a lot of dads do. They end up listening for their opportunity of where they can jump in and fix things, because dads like to fix things. And sometimes moms like to fix things before they're broken. So it's okay that you want to do that, but you can no longer help your student athlete by jumping in and doing something that they can and should do for themselves. And so don't start that dialogue. Don't lead them down the path of a conversation where they're going to tell you about a problem if you feel compelled to try to offer up a solution. They need to be able to figure it out. That's what college is about. That's what learning is about. That's what Carol Dweck's growth mindset's about. Allow them the space to be creative, to learn, to stumble, to fall, to scrape their knees. All these things that they hopefully did a little bit when they're under your roof in high school. Next, know your role. Now, if we talk about the 6 basic human needs, and I'm not going to even get into that with Tony Robbins, but do some looking there. Do some looking to find out what are some of the important things that your student athlete needs. And for them, you need to be the stability in their life. You need to be some of the love in their life, some of the connection in their life. And hopefully they'll find stability, connection, and love also at school. But at the same time, it's important to understand that you don't have to. Again, you don't have to try to solve their problems. You also don't have to look for their problems either. So maybe ask, again, when you had that conversation at the beginning, what were they looking for you to be, involved with? What are they looking to talk with you about? They probably don't want to talk with you about problems. But maybe they want to talk with you about problems because they don't want to share their problems with other people yet, because that might seem needy or seem like somebody that's negative that, might not have as easy enough of a time actually making friends and connections. So if they like to talk with you about their problems, understand that they're probably not just experiencing all problems. They probably have a decent amount of joy. So you can ask them about the joy in their life as well. That's fine. But if they're a person who calls to vent to you, just understand you're not there unless they ask you to solve the problems. The next thing, and this is probably the most important thing as it relates to dropping off your child at colleges, and this is Esther and Jerry Hicks talk about this all the time, is about allowing in our life and letting go. Not letting go from a standpoint of like, I'm done. It's allowing and letting go from a standpoint of allow whatever's going to happen to develop in its kind of natural way. You can still be concerned, you can still take preparations to make sure that in your own way you can find a way when it's timely and it's receptive, or is it looking to be received from the student athlete, that you can actually communicate stuff back to them. So sometimes that means you might say, I'll send you an email a week or something like that, and just let you know what my concerns are, and that's okay. Don't make it a long email, make it something short. But having it in an email or some form like that, or in Facebook Messenger or an Instagram message, allows you to communicate in a personal but semi-disconnected way, so that they don't feel the need to have a response, and they can come back to it if they want to. They don't have to just sit down and listen to the entire thing all at once, and hopefully it's short for you. Then the next thing after that is understand that your communication, especially with anybody connected with them at school, needs to be, for the most part, usually with their approval. Meaning, like, you don't need to communicate with the coach unless you're going to say something to the coach like, hey, let me know if you need my help with anything. Maybe they need something with fundraising, or something to do with boosters, or something to do with whatever, who knows. Organizing food at one of the away tournaments or games or matches or whatever. So you're there not to help the coach with anything other than parental stuff. Okay? They don't need your advice. They don't need you to jump in and let them know. It's the same thing that goes for the high school coach, the high school trainer, the high school, you name it. They don't need that kind of involvement. If you feel the need to share something, that's fine. You can share something, but let the athlete know that that you're going to share it, so that they're not caught off guard. College coaches really are not looking for parents to be involved in any way other than just being a parent, and that's really important. College has a support structure and framework for developing student athletes, and you should make sure that the student athlete is aware of that, and that they're going to use that in those services, and that you encourage that, but at the same time that you don't try to double over and do the things that there are people there to actually do. Again, that gets back to, like, what you shouldn't do for loved ones is what they can and should do for themselves. So they need to take advantage of a nutritionist, or they need to take advantage of some extra time with trainers, or some time with some of the academic help that they can have. So, or staying after and talking to the professor, whatever it is, you name it. Like, they need to develop that independence and that ability to speak and be somebody who can actually, be useful in their own life. The next thing is, as it relates to your mindsets, let's make sure that we're coming from a mindset of growth versus fixed. Make sure we're coming from a mindset of abundance versus scarcity. One bad grade on a quiz or on a test or something like that isn't the end of the world. And that's why I love a lot of the colleges that are out there that say basically, look, whatever you're getting for grades, we're just going to keep working forward. We're going to keep moving forward. We expect you to show up every day. We expect you to try your best. We expect you to do the proper preparation for tests and quiz, and we expect that you're going to do the reading that's required of you. At the same time, if the short-term feedback that we're getting is that you're not getting it, but you're trying, then that's okay. So that's great. But there's not that kind of a setup at every school. So it's important to understand, just make sure that that the athlete understands, like, hey, listen, do your work, show up every day, talk with your professors, talk with your advisors, talk with your whoever you have that is supposed to be up there for your service to help you. Take advantage of those things. And look for, and this is what the student athlete should be looking for those opportunities to learn, the opportunity to grow, to connect, to contribute, and be consistent and try something new. And so a lot of those things connect back with the Tony Robbins side of, it's the 6 basic human needs. And that's huge for school. And it's something that people overlook, and they get all frantic about talking about. It's not high school. And high school shouldn't have been like high school, but and there's a lot of similar problems because a lot of the people don't grow up, and that's okay. I mean, it is what it is. That's the contrast that creates the opportunities for the people who are getting it, who are working harder, and you'll excel much easier because of the contrast between a person who comes from a growth/abundant mindset versus somebody else who's acting out of fear instead of faith, and they're fixated on whether or not they failed on something and not paying attention to the process and sharpening the saw, so to speak. It's funny, I have a conversation with a lot of the parents, and it sounds like an episode from Seinfeld where it's the George Costanza sitting down at the coffee shop and the diner, and he gives the old he gets the talk from his current girlfriend, it's not you, it's me, and she's breaking up with him, and he flips out. He's like, you can't give me that, it's not you, it's me, I invented that, which is really funny, because if you've watched it, like, he does say that over and over again all the time. He's breaking up with people because he's bored, and he's, it's back to the 6 basic human needs. And it's funny, but it's the same thing a lot of times for parents and college students. It's, you don't want to have your student athlete, your kid, your child, give you the "it's not you, it's me" kind of breakup speech, and because it'd be a lie, kind of. It's about them. I mean, that's what college is about. It's about them. It's about them understanding that there's something bigger than them, something beyond them, and understanding and embracing the process, and you also doing the same thing, and understanding that it may be sad for you, but it's not healthy for you to necessarily share your sadness with your student athlete and put that burden on them while they're at school. So find somebody else. Find a different person to talk to about that. You can't get on the phone with them and tell them how much you miss them and all that sort of stuff. One, I love you is enough at the beginning and the end, unless somebody's looking for you to say I love you about 50 times, like your Hitch from the movie Hitch, which is the other thing. I mean, it's funny, in that movie, he becomes a love or couples relationship consultant, and in a way, I have way more conversations with parents than I do with the student athletes on the phone. In person, way more with the student athletes, but on the phone, way more with the parents. And a lot of the times, I'm having a conversation with the parents so that they're not on the phone having a conversation with their student athlete, taking away time and energy that student athlete needs to use to be the best they can possibly be at college. And that's a really, really important thing to think about. Who are you stealing time from? Are you taking away from them? Are you taking away energy that they need? Now, I'm not saying that if they're on Netflix and wasting time while they're at college 24/7, that's not an issue. That's an issue, and that needs to be something that's addressed. But at the same time, if that's not really the case, if they're doing well in school and they're learning and they're growing and they're contributing and they're connecting and they're doing well in their student athletics and they have all that stuff going on, they probably don't have a lot of room for you right now in their life, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're out of their life. That just means that they're in that space and time where things really get condensed and there's only so much room for so much. And it doesn't mean that they don't love you or anything else. Like Will Smith is just over the top in that movie about I love you, I love you, I love you. And unfortunately, it's not that the person didn't love him too, it's just he crowded them and didn't allow them the space to be themselves and grow. And so in a roundabout way, we kind of are, relationship consultants with the parents and the student athletes, because there is a need for counseling there. And I don't mean like, a professional psychiatrist or psychologist to actually work with somebody, but just somebody who's studied, been there, done that. I mean, we've had kids come up through, we have, Division I athletes in our family and our kids, and they're at all different ages, and we've been there and done that for our student athletes for a long time. And it's really about, it's funny because we're hired to develop the student athletes. But the funniest thing is, after all these years and several decades now, almost 3, is realizing we started off thinking we were building better student athletes, better people. But in order to build a better student athlete, or to grow a better student athlete, or somebody who's going to be more functional or more happy or experience more joy, truly, you need to work with the coaches and trainers around them, and some of the teachers too. But the person who will be for a lifetime connected is the parent. So in the end, we're trying to build better parents and grow them. And, that means we got to sit down and have that talk. The talk about, hey, listen, if you are missing your kid, don't send them a box full of cookies at college. They don't need it, okay? If you want to send them a box full of cookies at college, tell them to give them out to their friends, their roommates, people on the team or something. You got to understand, it's important to support the process, their process. And maybe you need to look at some of your processes too. If you find yourself over-parenting or trying to jump in when you're not being asked to jump in, hit the brakes, okay? Sean Aker, that's who it was. I just remembered. Sean Aker, TED Talk. His TED Talk was on, I think, like happiness at work or something like that, which is kind of an oxymoron if you live in the United States, unfortunately for some people. And that's a disservice also to your kids if you complain about work all the time, because that's what they hear. That's what they're going to think is work. It's just blah. Anyways, the point is, if you catch yourself over parenting with your kids, or you catch yourself sucking their time, or hassling them all the time, and you're trying to say, I'm just trying to get through to so and so. She won't call me back. He won't call me back. They won't, give them some space. Send them a text. One text. If the entire day's gone by and you haven't gotten a response, okay, send them another text, or maybe send them a Facebook message or something else like that. Give them some space. Think about, Sean Aker talked about SOS. Stop what you're doing. Observe the situation without emotion, and then shift to what would be best for the student athlete. And I'm not saying most convenient, I'm saying best. So the idea is that they develop into the student athletes and the citizens that are the most employable, the most beneficial for society and to themselves, and healthy for themselves and others. So think about what would be the best and then proceed forward. While you're doing that, here's some therapy for you. And this is kind of a morning routine, but it's called the ripple effect. And you can do it as an AM and a PM routine. Here's some ways to change your life to be more positive, and also to give yourself something else to focus on other than your student athlete for 5 minutes, so that you can kind of cope a little bit better with it. One, I think Sean talked about this in his Google talk, I believe. But 1, 3 gratitudes. List 3 things that you're grateful for in the morning and in the evening. They have to be 3 different things. That shouldn't be very difficult. And hopefully you try to be a little bit creative and you don't list the same 3 every time. as if you memorize them. So 3 things that we're grateful for. And if you want to be descriptive, that's helpful too. It's useful to write these things down. But again, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, 3 things you're grateful for. Next, 15 minutes of exercise, okay? In the morning. You don't have to do this at night if you don't want to, that's fine. But 15 minutes of exercise in the morning. It doesn't have to be difficult. Could even be walking, that's fine. Or yoga or something you can do in a small place. Next, journaling. Journaling, you could start off just with the 3 gratitudes. There you go, boom, that's an easy thing that you can already start off with journaling, okay? Writing down the things, after you write down the things you're grateful for, you could write down the why, or maybe the purpose of your day, or people that are in your life that you're appreciative of, and or that also maybe need a little bit of your thoughtfulness, love, and support. People maybe that are having some struggles, but then also some people who are having some victories, and that's a good thing to communicate. What are your goals for the day? Some things like that. What do you have that you're looking forward to? Put that carrot out there, that thing that you're looking forward to. It's good for you to understand how to actually be helpful for yourself as well, especially if you're going to try and teach your student athlete how to be helpful for themselves. Meditation. Meditation is huge, and I can't even begin to tell you just how impactful it is for changing who you are as a person, to creating joy in your life, or happiness in your life, or just getting you grounded and bringing you to a peaceful place, a place where you can get quiet and understand kind of what you have going on, and maybe get you a little bit closer to your purpose as well. So that meditation is huge. You can work your breath work in with that if you want to. That's fine too. We talked about box breathing and 1-4-2 ratios and stuff like that Wayne Dyer talks about. It doesn't have to be terribly complicated. I have a lot of friends that are involved in yoga and meditation and exercise and sports psychology, and just incredible life coaches, and you name it, just surrounded by all that stuff. So that's the first 4. The 5th one is, and this is kind of not necessarily unique to Sean, but there's a few other people that talk about this. I believe Johnson talks about this, and Dr. Dyer talks about it, but random acts of kindness. I think you probably saw it in a movie too with Morgan Freeman, and just doing things for people, impactful things for, it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody who can never do anything to help you, because this random act of kindness is going to pay it forward for you as well, just from the sheer positivity of the act. But if you don't know what this means, or you can't figure out how to be random because you're organized, some random acts of kindness are, sending somebody a letter, like an old-fashioned letter in the mail, just telling them that you're grateful for them, or that you hope that they have a nice day, or you're thankful for something that they did for you, or thankful for their influence in your life, or maybe your child's life, or you name it. Or it could be telling somebody in the store that they look nice, or that, connect with somebody on their level. Connect with somebody with something that makes them feel good, and then maybe something a little bit deeper than that as well. So for instance, if somebody works in the fashion world, they're going to be appreciative of you commenting them and complimenting them on like the way they look or something. But then after interaction with them, you can compliment them on something with a little bit more depth, so that they understand that there's more to what you see and more to your world than just what's going on in their world. Because if somebody feels like everything's kind of superficial and everything's work related, often they need somebody to kind of, pull back the covers a little bit, pull back the curtains, and expose a little bit more of what the world has to offer and what people truly value. And that is, the nature and the spirit of a person, and the power of their intention, and what they create out in the world, and what they have to offer. So those are the 5 things that you can start doing as a parent that would be helpful for you. And if your student athlete did it too, that's great. Chances are, if they work with us, they've already heard this at least 500,000 times talking about morning and evening routines. So again, that ripple effect from Sean Aker talks about 3 different gratitudes in the morning and the evening, journaling, 15 minutes of exercise, meditation, and random acts of kindness. Now, if you look him up on TED Talks, Sean Aker's hilarious. One of the funniest speakers. If you're looking for a good laugh as it relates to something education-wise and work-wise or joy and happiness-wise, Sean Aker and Ken Robinson, hilarious TED Talks. But there's several other ones on there too to learn from. My suggestion to you is take up a hobby, take up something. There's other things that you can do to make yourself more fulfilled and honestly a better person, a better parent. So again, parenting happiness and building better parents is what we're talking about, because better parents help create better environments, better habitats for those habits that those student athletes need in order to achieve and strive towards their potential with joy in the feeling of striving for that potential. Hopefully this has been helpful, and again, TED Talks is phenomenal. If you want to reach out to us and see if we can help you in some way, that's great. If not, the best of luck to you and your student athlete.